25 biggest teacher meltdowns ever, according to Reddit. Number 25. Junior year of high school, I decided to take a psychology class. The administration switched a lot of teachers around that year and hired a lot of new ones too, so I didn't know anything about him. As the semester goes on, his behavior starts slipping, and the class starts noticing. He begins to lose his patience more and more frequently when the class doesn't respond to a question immediately. His behavior then progressed to him throwing whiteboard markers at students for not paying attention or answering incorrectly. Then one day, about half the way into the semester, he completely loses it. A group of 3 students laughed at something within their own conversation just as class was starting, and our teacher saw and made a comment to the class that if we weren't going to listen, he would make today hell. Some kid spoke up saying that he would go to the principal if he did anything to hurt the class, so the teacher began throwing markers, erasers, anything he could find at the student. The student got up to leave for the principal's, and the teacher stood up on his desk and started screaming at us. He ran to the front of the classroom, where the student who spoke out was, picked up a desk and threw it at the student. Thankfully, it didn't hit him. But the teacher ran to the door to prevent anyone from leaving and said if anyone told anything about the day to anyone, he would ruin our lives. Some friends and I told the principal and administration, and I actually had to go into court to testify. Turns out the guy suffers from schizophrenia, as well as some degree of PTSD after serving in the military. I don't remember what ended up happening with him at the time. I really don't care to know. Forgive me. Fuck me. A response here says, bummer, I really wanted to hear this ending with something like, at the end of the semester, he tied his erratic behavior to a lesson plan. Come on, man. Number 24. Had a substitute in 5th grade. I was really unorganized as a kid, and having to dig through my desk for shit wasn't uncommon. The substitute went to collect our homework, one by one, and I was still digging through, pulling a bunch of stuff out when she got to me. Excuse me. Ugh. She got all towering and told me that this was unacceptable. She dumped my desk in front of me and told me I was staying in from recess to organize it. One girl said, "You can't make him do that." And the sub raised her voice and spit out, "You don't tell me what to do, brat. I can do whatever I want." The whole class revolted, and a neighboring teacher came in to see what was up. The sub claimed I was being lippy and that this was my punishment. Then the whole class spoke up and informed him of what really happened, and we were all let out for recess. Came back in, and the lunch lady was sitting at the teacher's desk instead. As the kid who was always picked on by everyone, it was nice to see the whole class stand up for me that day. What a wholesome little story. How kawaii. How kawaii. A response reads, "This is an awesome story. Fuck people who go on power trips, especially over children. It's not really just about power trips for me, homie. It's about the fact that niggas gonna lie. Bitch ass old lady gonna lie on a little kid. Like, what the fuck is actually wrong with you? He was getting lippy with me. Shut the fuck up, you old no dick getting bitch." Number 23. After our class picture, our first year teacher declared, "New rule. Every day is now class picture day. I want to see smiles from each and every one of you every single day." The class let out a collective groan, and the teacher said, "Come on, turn those frowns upside down." She kept us for a good month on the smile policy. Keep in mind, this was during the 90s. The class was divided evenly amongst goths, grunge, and gangsters. The only thing we agreed upon were that the smiles were for pussies. The meltdown came the day she brought in her karaoke machine and attempted to sing Tim McGraw's "Just to See You Smile." Like, have some self-awareness, you old bitch. We just sat there stone-faced as usual, and she tried to ham it up just to get us to laugh, but nothing. We were all too tough to show any humor or heart, and then she broke down and started blubbering. I just wanted to smile. Is that too much to ask? Apparently, it was because none of us even had a goddamn common courtesy to offer her a tissue. The next day, she went resting bitch face on our asses, and word on the street is she hasn't cracked a smile in 20 years. Okay, guys. Word on the street. Okay. Yeah, a breakdown moment. That's what you guys were witnessing there, and it's a damn shame we didn't get it on video. If only we all had camera phones back in the 90s. There was some shit to catch back then, let me tell you. It's gonna be May. Number 22. 7th grade history. Teacher's first name was, I shit you not, Kermit. Kermit D. Frog here. Why don't you eat my ass? Student was chewing gum, putting on makeup, chatting and reading a magazine during a lecture. Hey, you little shit. God damn it. Kermit calmly walks over to her desk and orders her to get out of her seat. Get out of your seat. He then lofts the desk chair thing above his head and hurls it over the 3 rows of students to the cinder block wall, where it smashes to pieces and falls in a pile on the floor at the back of the room. Then commands the student to sit back down at her desk. She goes and sits on the pile of steel frame and plywood, and Kermit continues on with the lecture. I've never seen such a red, angry, bearded rage face in my life. Kermit, fuck you here. You gonna stop chewing that gum? You're gonna get number 21. A university professor, actually. Okay. She would teach and constantly complain about 3 girls who sat near the back for talking and being on their phone. One day she made a big scene, took their names, and left dramatically. This was a huge lecture hall of 100+ students. I heard them laughing once, but never anything else. I found her fixation on these 3 intolerable. During the exam, the rooms were organized, what seemed to me as horribly by last names, not alphabetical. Random last letters in each different group. She had seated 3 in the same room and loudly spoke during the exam for a few minutes to distract them, except there was 40+ people in the room. I'm still bitter because it really distracted me. I wouldn't call that a meltdown, but it is voted up high because I guess it's just unprofessional. You know, a lot of ladies don't know how to do their fucking job. I know it's gonna sound so rude to you guys, but to be honest, the only people in authority I've ever had problem with are women, and it's because they abuse that authority in ways that, you know, I guess they can abuse in other portions of their life. It's terrible to say. And one of the only meltdowns I remember from my childhood was one that I caused on this old lady, you know, that I made cry. And it was 100% her fault. It was 100% her fault. The response here says the teacher didn't handle that very well. But as a professor myself, nothing pisses me off more than group huddles and people fucking around with their devices during a lecture. I mean, I get it, dude, but, you know, don't make other people pay for it. I know people who haven't been subscribed to me long enough who are dying for this story want to hear it. So just to quickly touch on it. The reason that I made this one teacher cry is because she was coming at us with baggage that really deserved to be with whoever the hell pissed her off. Like whatever class had initially pissed her off was where that shit needed to stay. And I remember the analogy that came out of my mouth because if you can believe it, I was just as articulate as I am now then, but I was much crueler because I was a child and didn't understand restraint. I established the analogy along the lines of if one child spills a glass of milk, you don't trot the other child in here to whoop his ass. Do you know what I'm saying? So I said she needed to correct herself in a way where when she's coming to work in the morning, she's leaving whatever ridiculous baggage and upset bullshit that she has at home, and she needs to not transfer her anger from one class to another class because that shit don't have anything to do with us. You know what I mean? You need to address yourself in a way where you can do your job because you're getting paid to do something. You know what I mean? And nothing triggered Kyle more than the idea of somebody being paid to do a shit job. Fuck me, man. Like worse than an Overwatch teammate that can't do shit. That makes me angry. But let's continue here. You know what I'm talking about? Let's continue. Anyway, yeah, that lady was crying and she was out in the hallway and everybody was like, God damn, Kyle. And I'm like, tell me I'm wrong, no. And there's this one quote from The Simpsons that I love more than life. Skinner says, there's being right. There's being right and there's being nice. And that's the way of the world, ain't it? There's being right and there's being nice. Fuck you. Number 20. I taught public school for like 7 years and have been teaching in university ever since. Sorry. All teachers don't sound like that. Come on. I know I probably have like one teacher subscriber. Hello, teacher subscriber. I hope your classes aren't giving you too much stress. I taught public high school for 7 years, and I've been teaching in university ever since. Every time one of these threads pops up, I expect to find the story of how I once broke down in tears when a cell phone rang in class. That's all it takes. Or the time I threw up in a trash can, brushed my teeth with a bottle of water right in front of my 42 of what? Asked the janitor to come down and take the trash out and went back to teaching after my favorite student of all time faked barfing noises because he knew it would make me puke. My favorite student. What a confusing relationship. I love that. Somebody else says, for future reference, brushing your teeth after vomiting is a very bad idea. Rinse with water or mouthwash, but don't brush or rub your teeth. You're just getting it all over in there, you idiot. The acid in your vomit softens your teeth, and brushing them while they're soft can strip away a lot of the enamel, which is bad. Likewise, don't brush within 30 to 60 minutes of eating. Y'all learned something today. How about that? Number 19. 10th grade was in math class, and the teacher was getting frustrated that not everyone was understanding a problem, and he made various threats on what he would do if we didn't figure it out. More homework, tests, etc. I was asking questions because I legitimately didn't understand, and he yelled, "Fuck's sake!" and threw an eraser at me. I got up and left. Never ratted him out, and next day he was super patient with everyone. It was his, oh, I fucked up moment. Someone responds, remind me of my math teacher in high school, a sweet old man, just a few years from retirement, but not teacher material. He's just a few years from retirement. His idea of teaching was that if you didn't understand something, he would explain it to you again, with the same words, in the same order. Multiple times. He just could not understand why we had difficulty understanding his explanations. Well, some people, there you go, man. Number 18. In high school, I turned in a form to my science teacher a day late. She screamed at me, walked out of the classroom, and was gone for nearly an hour. The class had started, and everyone had speculations, blaming me for what happened. Teacher comes back, joyful and smiling, says she just needed a walk around the campus to recover. You better get that shit under control, lady. Giggly, goddamn. Somebody else says they responded, I'm surprised they blamed anyone for teacher leaving. My high school would probably have thrown a party. Yeah, for real. Yeah, no, but at my high school, that's how you know the kids are nerdy and that's how you know with a caliber of nerd kids, and we need to get our shit done type people in the class. If everybody turning on me, getting mad, like, well, you shouldn't have done it, Kyle. You shouldn't have done that, goddammit. Number 17. Not so much a breakdown, but a break in normal behavior for sure. Our freshman English teacher was a small, soft-spoken woman who was kind of known to be a teacher you could walk all over a little, but not know. Oh, okay. A teacher that you could walk all over with little, but not know repercussions. We were in a review session after school, and some upperclassmen were just hanging out in the hallways making lots of noise, so she was constantly poking her head out into the hall asking them to be quiet. As we were all very silent reading or something, the classroom door absolutely slams shut so hard that the latch didn't have time to catch the door and bounced back open. The teacher immediately yells, "Oh hell no!" kicks off her heels and takes off the door. She caught up with the kid, who had taken a running start and kicked the door shut, and berated him for a good 10 minutes, which we could hear clear as day at the end of the hall. It was like nothing we'd ever heard from her. Well, that's a cool meltdown. I just like the idea of her going, "Oh hell nah," and then taking her shoes off and just like, oh my God. "You got me fucked up," she was yelling in the hallway. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Gangster Bitch. Chill." Number 16. We had an art teacher in year 7, 11 years old is how old this person must have been. Year 7, man. Okay. Who would lock himself in the supply cupboards and scream and rip his hair out. It was unsettling. "It's his art," says a responder. Somebody said, "I had an art teacher, we'll call him Bob Smith, who would write his own quotes on the board, like in his format. I'm just making something up, but it was cheesy like this. The only limits to your imagination are the ones you put on it. Bob Smith." It was super cringy. That's great. Number 15. English teacher brought a gun to school. You what? She thought one of her whole classes was trying to kill her. She was in the mental hospital the last time I heard. So the plan failed. We'll get him next time. Number 14. This was in high school. We had a band teacher. His nickname was Pinky because he was a genius. I'm kidding. Because he had very red hair and pale skin with a red tint, borderline albino. Every time he got mad, his entire face turned tomato red. I don't remember the sequence of events, but he was already frustrated. Everyone in the room knew to shut up so that we didn't piss him off. Well, everyone except this one dippy girl. Dippy, dippy, dip girl. Dippy girl, hey. They call her Dippy because we like to dip in. They call her Dippy because we like to dip in. Dippy girl? What? Dippy girl. She asked, I'm sorry. She asked something along the lines of, "Are you mad?" and kept pestering him. He finally snapped. His face turned that familiar shade of tomato red, and he threw the pencil he was using to conduct across the room. He then stormed out and slammed the door hard enough that it could be heard on the other side of the building. He quit soon after. Somebody responds, "I've seen it firsthand. Being a high school band director is hard enough without kids trying to intentionally bother you." A lot of band teachers at the high school level quit after a few years. The band director I work for in the fall has to deal with so much shit from parents. It's ridiculous. A lot of the parents are pretty cool, but there's always at least one crazy a year. Yeah, somebody said, so being a band teacher is similar to the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher? You have no idea, dude. My initial band director quit, and then we made the follow-up quit. I remember being in a movie theater with a friend of mine and receiving a phone call, hearing that the guy, that we hated that followed up quit. And I literally jumped up and hugged my male friends. Hugged in the movie theater. We couldn't believe it. We were so happy. Fuck me. What is this? What is this? Somebody's life story here? Can we not? God, it's like, I don't expect to not read. I don't want to not read, but fuck me. Number 13. My 8th grade algebra teacher, also German teacher, Mr. Cogburn, was an interesting guy. He was tall, had kind of wild-looking frizzy gray hair and a beard, and had a sort of boisterous, larger-than-life kind of personality. He started every day by slamming the door and yelling. He yelled, or as I would realize once I got into theater in high school, he projected through the entire class period, though he never really came across as intimidating. He always had a yardstick in his hand that he would slap forcefully against the blackboard to emphasize what he was saying. He would also slap it against the desks of students who weren't paying attention, though he was exceedingly careful to not actually hit the students. It wasn't terribly uncommon for him to break yardsticks, and there was always another in the supply cabinet to replace the one he'd broken. He had a little song/chant he made up for remembering the slope-intercept form of an equation for a line that I will probably remember until the day I died. He also gave the most effective, and to 8th graders both hilarious and embarrassing, explanation of how to divide fractions. He stood on the desk and told us, "Always divide the top." Here he pointed at his head, by the bottom. Here he pointed to Here he turned around and pointed at his own ass. Divide the bottom. Never divide the bottom, because the bottom, here he helpfully gestured up and down the length of his ass, is already divided. Okay. I'm sorry. Let's read that one more time because I really did botch that read. Always divide the top. Here he pointed at his head. By the bottom. Here he turned around and pointed at his own ass. Never divide the bottom, because the bottom, here he helpfully gestured up and down the length of his ass, is already divided. That's what Mr. Cogburn was like. He was big and loud and crazy, but not in a scary way. We told new students that the way to tell he was actually mad was if he started the class by shutting the door like a normal person and speaking quietly, and that was when they should be scared. Now we get to the story of the meltdown. Every year our school did an event called the Mathathon. Students were given math worksheets and tried to solve as many problems as they could in a set amount of time. People, usually the parents, would sponsor the students, pledging a certain amount of money for each problem correctly solved, and at the end the money was donated to a local charity that helps the disabled. It was that time of year that Mr. Cogburn was explaining the Mathathon to my class. And when he had got to the point about the charity and what they did, one boy, who probably thought himself incredibly cool and edgy, loudly said, "I don't know why anyone bothers to help those retards. We should just let them all die." And Mr. Cogburn transformed. As I said before, dude was tall, well over 6 feet, but his height never came across as imposing at all. Now, he loomed over that student's desk like the goddamn angel of death. He seemed to physically radiate pure rage. I swear to all that's holy, you could feel his outrage coming off of him in waves. Even though he was focused solely on that one boy, the students halfway across the room sank down in their chairs in pure terror, trying to disappear under their desks. I know because I was one of them. We couldn't even look at him, not out the usual "shit, he's mad, don't make eye contact" instinct most people have, but more like it was a form of physical protection. He was a burning sun of anger, and if we looked directly at the sun, it might blind us. He spoke very, very quietly to the boy for a minute. I didn't make out what he said. Then he led the kid out of the room and shut the door. About a quarter of the class started crying as soon as he left. After a while, the other math teacher came in and started for the rest of the period. What we all found out later, and which none of us, including that boy, had known, was that Mr. Cogburn's daughter, who he spoke about to us frequently, was not his only child. He and his wife also had a son that was born extremely physically disabled and who had died at a very young age from health complications arising from those disabilities. When he took that student out of the room, I think we all thought he was going to kill him. He actually just took him down to the principal and explained what the kid had said, and the kid was suspended for a day. Mr. Cogburn also took the rest of the day off. So that was the biggest meltdown I ever saw from a teacher, and it was sort of the inverse of a normal meltdown. When he was shouting, gesticulating wildly, and hitting our desks with yardsticks, we loved the guy and feared nothing. But the day when he got so quiet, we felt mortal fucking terror. A fantastic story indeed. How are you not at the top of this list? Because, people would prefer stupid ass jokes. And maybe some old hag that, is on her period, freaking out. So let's see what's above this, guys. It's going to be disappointing. Number 12. I was in band one day. One of the regular, always in trouble, disruptive students who was being extra disruptive while the director was trying to tell us something important. So after about 5 different times of going the normal route to get him to settle down, he cracked. He got quiet. And then the director bellowed, "Student's name? Are you stupid? Or just don't give a shit?" The whole room was quiet. All eyes were now on the disruptive kid, who was then trying to hide behind his tuba. My tuba brethren. Then the director continued with all his announcement like nothing happened. Of course he was a tuba player. Bunch of misfits they are. Hey, you son of a bitch. Somebody said, I played trombone, so I'm well versed in the ways of low brass mafia. Trust me, son. We crazy. Yeah, talk about all of that low brass. I had a Spanish teacher in middle school that was so tired of us turning in broken Spanish on our homework assignments that she screamed at us and called us stupid Americans before throwing pieces of chalk at one of us after the other. Another time, she got on her knees and started praying the rosary in front of us when a girl said, "El pollo nugget." Yeah, that's that chicken nugget, baby. That pollo nugget, baby. Hey. How you say pollo? How you say chicken nugget in Spanish? Nugget in Spanish. Nugget de pollo. That's the nugget de pollo, baby. That's the nugget de pollo, baby. Number 10. We had a physical education teacher who sweat like a motherfucker whenever sexual subjects were raised. Oh man, he's a sex offender. He ended up having to be a substitute teacher for one of our sex ed lessons. We were very unaware of his discomfort discussing the subject and asked him lots of in-depth questions, making sure we used all the correct anatomical terminology. The guy had a Class A anxiety attack. Pity no one had taught us about those. And I was genuinely afraid he was going to have a heart attack. Red-faced, profuse sweating, breathing difficulty, and a look of primal terror in his eyes. Did he have a nosebleed as well? Like, what kind of anime is this? We got the early mark we were fishing for, but I think we did the poor fellow some real emotional damage. Uh-oh. So a response reads, we had a biology teacher who, whenever sexual topics came up, as it were, would get rather excited in a physical way, you know? What the fuck? A raging boner. He ended up doing sex ed for my class. It was not great. Another response means he would not have needed his pointer that day. Come on, guys. He would not have. Number 9, man. Year 9 math class. Our teacher was off, sick, and the early 20s substitute teacher came in to cover. Oh Lord. She was lovely, kind, friendly, although a bit timid and shy. All of this translates to she must have had a rockin' pair of big titties. One girl in our class used a fountain pen to flick ink on a shirt she was wearing one day, and the poor woman noticed her do that, didn't say a word, and just went to her desk, put her head in her hands, and sobs. Doesn't move to 10 minutes, at least. Eventually, a friend of mine goes to get another teacher. The sub was escorted out, still crying, and was seen for the rest of the day just crying in her car. Didn't move for another 4 hours or so. What the fuck? Fuck that bitch. Fuck that dirty, jealous skank. Somebody said it was probably her only work outfit and she wasn't making enough to buy anything else to wear. Similar thing happened with a new substitute in high school. They have it rough. Somebody else responds, I'm starting to think teachers deserve more tips than any other job. Another response reads, teaching is one of the only jobs where people are actively trying to stop you from doing your job. Up there with armed services in that sense. Well, that sucks. Number 8. In my senior year, my English teacher was assaulted by a serial rapist. Holy shit. She was going to check her mail and he grabbed her. She was tiny, but she fought him off and ran when someone came to see what the fuck was going on. She wasn't raped, thank God, but she definitely had post-traumatic stress disorder. This was in '89, so she wouldn't have been diagnosed with anything. I don't know why she decided to tell her class, but she fell apart when she got about halfway through. She wasn't the only one. There were a couple of big old boys in the class who were both star football players. Gotta say, until this, I thought they were just another couple of jock meatheads. They were both in tears. She finished her story. I can't say that any of us did anything amazing or actually anything at all, but she didn't ever have to walk to her car alone, and some of the students who lived in the same apartment complex kept an eye on her. They got the bastard who attacked her about a year later, and he was a very bad man and nearly killed one of the last women he attacked. Fuck me. Yeah, because raping isn't bad enough. A response here says, amidst the ocean of terrible 13-year-olds and even worse teacher stories, it's nice to hear some good that comes as a result. You're damn Skippy. This is kind of wholesome in that they did try to help this woman out, so I can see why that's above the Cogburn story. But you know we gonna love this Cogburn story in a way where we just wonder why it's not at the top. Why isn't the Cogburn story at the top, baby? Number 7. In primary school, some kids were misbehaving, and she broke down into tears and started screaming and threw a chair. We never saw her again. Is this really better than the Cogburn story? You got me fucked up. It ain't better than the Cogburn story, come on. It ain't better than the Cogburn story, come on. Number 6. Maybe not a meltdown per se, but I had a chemistry class that was held in a huge auditorium with really steep stairs. The professor always walked all around the room while we took quizzes and tests. One day he tripped halfway up the auditorium stairs and took a hell of a fall. He landed face down, unhurt apart from bruises, on the floor. Before we could really react, he starts banging his fists on the floor and screaming, "Entropy! Entropy! Entropy!" Hilarious. Hilarious. That sounds like a recovery. Hilarious. Hilarious, guys. Hilarious. I'm beginning to think that a lot of these must have just been commented way before the Cogburn story, and Cogburn didn't get as many upvotes because that story got here late. Story was late to the party. 5 of these left, guys. Home stretch. Can you believe me? Number 5. It started as a normal lesson. Let's try this again. The teacher giving the class a lecture. My fucking balls are being pinched. Sitting. Making the underwear like, okay. It started as a normal lesson with the teacher giving the class a lecture. Then his phone rang, which happens really rarely, but instead of hanging up like he would usually do, he answered. When he hung up, he had the most distraught face I've ever seen and stayed silent for a close to a minute. "I'm sorry, a friend just committed suicide," he said, before sobbing quietly and excusing himself out of the class. That sucks. Someone responds, in my second year of teaching, my wife was diagnosed with terminal cancer. I had to tell my class that I would be missing a lot of days because of that. One student walked up from the back of the room, and I looked at him as if to ask what he was doing, and he said, "You need a hug," and gave me a big hug in front of the classroom. Sometimes kids are good people. Somebody else said, just like other people, but smaller. Some other person said sometimes, but most of the school memories are most of my classmates being evil little shitbags. And somebody else responds, just like other people, but smaller. Somebody else says, this phrase will forever be ingrained in my mind. Somebody else says, just like other phrases, but smaller. Just like your penis, but smaller. Number 4, in high school, our government teacher freaked out on my class. We had a few talkers in the back of the corner, but they finally broke him. He flipped his podium, or lectern, over and started screaming at us. He called us the worst group of kids he'd ever had to teach, and that he was 110% accurate, that we were going to be nothings. Oh. Then he went to his desk and drank his entire thermos of coffee. A few years later, he was having a retirement party at his house. I was close friends with his son, and he revealed that his thermos was 80% vodka and 20% coffee. Some guy responds, what the fuck is wrong with that guy drinking coffee and vodka in front of all those students? What if they found out he could have been a terrible influence on them for the rest of their lives? Whiskey goes in coffee, not vodka. And then somebody else says, he's on to something though, because vodka adds a bit of sweetness to the coffee without altering the actual taste too much. I tried whiskey in there, and I prefer the vodka. Source, divorce. Source, divorce. Like a nice relationship, but a little bit smaller. Source, divorce. That's pretty messed up. Gael, I don't know why my nasal passage is becoming so congested. It's like it just happens every time I have to record these lists. I'm not sure what's happening to me these days. Number 3, I had the same morning tutor from the age of 11 to 16. She was really, really lovely. Big titties, that's what that translates to. If only I had big titties in my life. She was an English teacher, and we always chatted about literature and films. She was always up for a laugh and joked around with us all the time. Big titties. A few times a year, she'd buy a load of food and treats to dish out. Then, when we were about 14, she got engaged. Aww. A year later, the relationship was over, and she was a wreck. Sweet. She suddenly got really quiet. Then one day we were talking and laughing, but she was trying to get our attention. She couldn't get the attention and suddenly burst into tears. Took off her ID card and in the dead silence of the room said, I can't do this. She walked out of the room and we didn't see her again for weeks. She's now traveling the world. I have her on Instagram. Last time I checked, she was in Nepal. Probably losing matches of Overwatch. See what I did there, baby? Overwatch, baby. Overwatch. Sorry. Okay, look. Somebody just woke up because they put these things on to go to sleep. And, I just ruined their day. For people who aren't aware, Nepal is a match in Overwatch. And once you start playing that game, baby, it just changes your life in a way that you're filthy pranked. Sorry. Some guy goes, I don't know whether to feel sad or happy. Poor girl. If she's a hot bitch, she's probably got things going for her. She's traveling. That's more than most idiots do. I mean, a lot of us don't want to travel. We just want to have a certain amount of money and live in a house and be happy. do our thing. But, other people, when they go searching for something, all you can do is hope that they find it. All you can do is hope that they find it. Number 2, junior year in university, my genetics professor was in the middle of a lecture where the authorities took him out of the auditorium. The authorities took him out of the auditorium. Holy shit. And informed him that his wife, the dean of our college, had been struck and killed by a motor vehicle that morning. He retreated to his office and proceeded to tear the place apart like a tornado had gone through it. He ripped the top of his desk off its frame, pulled down all of the bookcases, books, pages, papers, all sorts of documents and furniture strewn everywhere in pieces. By the time I graduated, he still wasn't the same man he was before that awful day. That sucks to learn that, your wife has been struck by a car. And then hilariously, I bet you whoever was in that car survived. That's just how life works. Somebody else says, to be fair, that's a pretty solid reason to tear apart an office if ever I've seen one. Well, Number 1, man. I don't know if it really counts, but our former Latin teacher once slapped a kid across the face because they made fun of her dead husband. She got suspended shortly afterwards. How you gonna make fun of a dead? Kids are crazy. We need some more crazy kids. We need some more crazy kid stories is what we need. Somebody says, I hope the kid was also suspended. I don't remember it correctly, but I don't think he was. Yeah. And therein lies the root of so many problems. That kids are basically bulletproof, and the teachers have a bullseye on their backs. So, I'm a nice guy. And I do love my subscribers. All 17 of you. I love you. So, on the note of me saying, oh yeah, we need some more, students fucking up stories, because students are crazy. For clarity, the question being asked here was, what's the biggest teacher meltdown you've ever witnessed? And because people on Reddit are so original, somebody asked the question, teachers of Reddit, what's the biggest student meltdown you've ever seen? They flipped the script. They flipped the script. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read 12 of these? 13? No, 12. I'm going to do 12 of these. I'm not trying to pad out this video. I'm just trying to get something nice, All right, so number 12. I had a class that integrated some of the special education students for 2 hours a day. We were having a holiday party, so the kids got to push their desks together and have snacks and watch a movie. I'm sitting at the desk, grading papers, when I hear the class getting kind of noisy. I ask what's going on, and someone mentions that Trevor doesn't like his part of the movie, or this part of the movie. Trevor is a 12-year-old boy on the autism spectrum. He's a very large boy, about 6 foot and well over 200 pounds. I tell Trevor to come on over to my desk, and he does. He says he doesn't like when people sing in movies and starts covering his ears. I tell him I will fast forward this part, and he flips his shit. Apparently he hates fast forwarding more than he hates singing in movies. He picks up a desk and whips it against the wall near a set of windows. I hate fast forwarding. It's not funny, Kyle. Come on. Flips over every desk he can and gets his hands on all while screaming like someone is attacking him. He's just trashing the room and starts going after the kids. I yell for one of the kids to run and get his main teacher, and another to get the principal. Trevor pushes a few kids hard enough to make them all fall down, and then grabs a girl by the throat and starts choking her. Oh shit. He has a look on his face of a madman, and he's sweating profusely and turning red while this girl is trying to fight him off. So kick him in the nuts. I get over there and I'm able to pry his hands off with the help of a few students. The thing is, you can't mix these kids because they're dangerous. Inadvertently dangerous. Trevor then turns to me and in a crazy deep voice says, "I will find your house and hide." I'm sorry. It's not funny. It's not funny, Kyle. Come on, man. All right. I'm just thinking of, like, I was just remembering something that happened to me. It's completely unrelated to this, guys. I will find you. I will find your house. I'm sorry. I will find your house and hide under your bed until you come home. I will rape and murder you and laugh while I am doing it. What the fuck? His teacher came in and was able to pry him away, and Trevor just stared at me the entire way out, laughing like crazy. It was scary as fuck. Jesus Christ. Somebody said, what was it like in the class after he was dragged away? And they respond, a madhouse. It was the last day before Christmas break, and it was time to go shortly after this happened. So I had to pick up the desks quickly and have to move to start getting their coats and boots on. What the hell? 12 years old. You know, he was playing some Xbox 360 at the time. You know, he was on that Halo when everybody was like, you nigga bitch, you faggot Jew. Oh, Xbox 360 back in the day was great with Halo. You guys will never know swear words until you hear some of those kids. Ooh. Number 11. I worked as a second grade teacher at an elementary school. How's it going to get better than this, man? I worked as a second grade teacher at an elementary school for a couple of years. One of the more talented girls. It's hard to tell who was really smart at that age, but she always seemed to be on top of things, had no dad, and lived with her mom, who it turned out was a bit of a heroin addict. Ugh. One Monday, she came into school looking just totally shell-shocked. I asked her what was wrong, and she wouldn't say. This lasted until the Tuesday of the next week. Another who student who was always trying to get under anyone's skin. Another student who was trying to always get under anyone's skin made fun of this girl for her mom's addiction, and the girl just lost it. She tried to punch the other student and just started screaming. Once we had her calm down, we asked her what had set her off, and she explained that her mom had been using the needles again last week, had gotten high, but that she was still sleeping on the bed. We weren't sure what that meant, but as is procedure, we called the police, and when Child Protective Services checked it out, turns out her mom had overdosed the week before, and the girl had no idea she had been dead, so she just kept doing her thing. Oh my God. Oh my God. Given the context, it's not surprising that she seemed to be on top of things. She was essentially taking care of herself. All I want to do is hope that this little girl is fucking fine, man. God damn. God damn. Number 10. This is a grim list, motherfucker. This is a grim list. I will find your house and hide under your bed and wait to rape you. And your mom's dead and the kids just keeping calm and carrying on. Child Protective Services took her away and put her somewhere fucking awful. I hope that she made it, dude. Number 10. I teach English in Japan, and I worked in some elementary schools for a few years. In one class, this one kid just wouldn't keep quiet, kept talking in a loud voice to the kid next to him. No matter how many times I asked him to be quiet and pay attention, I got frustrated and told him off, saying that even if he didn't learn, he was screwing it up for everyone else, and to either be quiet or to get out, all in Japanese, of course. Just to note, kids are almost never kicked out of class in Japan, as far as I'm aware, because people have the right education by law here. Have the right to education by law here. The kid flipped out and started yelling at me. I can't remember everything he said, but the highlight would translate as approximately, "Die, you fucking pervert." And this was coming from a 4th grader. Then he buggered off somewhere. Somebody said, isn't the go-to punishment in Japan making the offending kid hold buckets in the hall? That's cliche, but I don't think it's done much anymore. Yeah, that's really old. What anime have you been watching thinking that they still do that? You dumb bitch. I was watching this high school anime. Number 9. I was handing back an exam since my professor was out that day dicking around. Simple question. Based on the definition of country we gave in class, what is the longest lasting country? The answer was San Marino, but the one kid flipped out insisting that Africa is the oldest country and that I was whitewashing history. He refused to calm down and stormed out. He was not invited back to class. Dun, 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 dun. Sorry. I hear the drums go in tonight. Number 8. A student went off on a math teacher down the hall while she was beginning her lesson. He started screaming, "This doesn't make sense. You don't fucking care about us. You're a bitch. None of y'all teachers care. You're only in this for the money." I wonder how much he thinks we get paid. Somebody responds, "From my experience, math in public school is taught poorly, and the only help they offer for struggling students is often just after school programs and last several hours, and don't really teach the material any differently. After years of being high above average in everything else, but below basic in math, I had to figure out I had a learning disability on my own. Every year I would feel fucking horrible about math skills, literally years of feeling like a failure because the system had failed me. Years of crying, years of headaches, every time I tried to do my homework, and no one even asked what's wrong. The highest grade I ever got was a B, and that's because I took a year and a half to finish Algebra 1. My 4th time taking the class. My junior/senior year, after I got moved to a charter school that would let me do it at my pace. I still had to sit at school for 5+ hours a day and 3+ days a week when the other students only popped in for maybe 5 hours total to drop off work and take tests. I'm honestly surprised more students don't freak out this way about math. Let's just scroll up here, man. I'm getting tired. It's just like, fuck me. The top one's long. So let's read from the top down until I inevitably have to stop this because, one of the reasons I can't record so often is because I'm going to get bothered so often. Goddamn. Number 1. We were on a class trip on the way back to school when one of my colleagues pointed to a boy who was leaning against the subway doors, upset about something. I walked over and learned he had left his backpack at the movie theater and was very upset. I tried to encourage him, but he didn't care. Eventually, we were at our train stop, and everyone is getting off, but this kid is still leaning against the subway doors. Opposite side had opened. Doors are about to close, and only he and I remained from our group. I tell him, "Please, don't freak out, but I'm gonna take you off the train. We have to go." He immediately starts struggling, but I'm a big guy, so I get him off. As the train starts pulling away, he is trying to walk back towards it, and we are all like, "What the fuck, man? Careful, the train is pulling out of the station." Eventually, I grab him, drag him back towards the ground, and yell at coworkers to get kids out of here. As they're walking away, he is trying to crawl towards the open subway tracks, presumably to kill himself. This kid is 12, and I'm a giant man, but I'm struggling to subdue him. I wrestled in high school, so I know how to keep control of someone on the ground, but he is really determined to get to those tracks. I'm still struggling with him, and another train comes, but I keep him on the platform. People are now asking him if he is okay, eyeing me like, "What the fuck are you doing to this child?" Eventually, I tell my coworker to get the police, and she runs off in tears. Now I'm alone struggling with this child on the ground, and I assume it's about to get real, but as soon as he hears mention of the police, he starts calming down and begs me to let him go, promising to be good. After a minute of not letting go, I talk him into standing up with me, and I take him while aggressively holding his hand and putting my arm around him. We breathlessly walk into school, and I immediately take him to the main office where a small crisis team has gathered. Once he is safely sitting in a chair, I collapse into one as well and start processing my ordeal. His family comes to school to pick him up, but we have to mandatorily send him to hospital for psychiatric evaluation. A couple days later, he is back in school like nothing ever happened. We had a special bond after that, and he always came to my classroom to check with me all year, even though I wasn't his teacher. I don't work at that school anymore, but I'm heading back at the end of this year to see the students graduate and hope to find him happier and healthier. What the fuck was the problem? Did he ever get his backpack back? Asking a real question. I knew he was going to say asking a real question. Somebody has to ask her a real question. Anyway, look. Wow. I wonder what was wrong with him. Number 22. 22? There's only 1 2 there. You shut up, Kyle. It can be 22 if it wants to be. It can be double the trouble. Number 2. We were meeting in the computer lab for a week because the students were working on their projects. Okay. One of my students was hanging out with his girlfriend before class started. I was in the classroom, so I wasn't paying any attention to the conversation. My God. He walks into the room and he was fuming. I asked him what was wrong and he didn't respond. He went to his computer and punched the screen. I tried to calm him down and he picked up the table, which had 5 computers on it, and tipped it over. I got the rest of the students out and called security. He absolutely destroyed the computer lab. He was suspended for the rest of the year and was banned from prom and graduation, and his parents had to pay for the damages. His girlfriend apparently cheated on him. I heard they got back together after that. What a fuck boy. What a cuck. Yeah, somebody said back in my day, if a kid punched a computer screen, he would have ended up with a set of broken knuckles. We had some fat daddy gangster bitch, big TV style TV monitors. You know what I'm talking about? Monitors that easily weighed like almost half a typical student. You know what I'm talking about? Somebody else said back in my day, if a kid punched a computer screen, he was a time traveler. It's funny seeing so many people on Reddit. Are they going to keep going with this? Back in my day, if a kid punched a computer screen, that was slang terms for killing a Kraut soldier with a bayonet. That's racist. Somebody said, in my day, I kill Krauts with bayonets on my computer screen. A Battlefield, baby. Anyway, you guys want to see me play Battlefield for a stream? Because I have that game. You want to see me do it? You want to see me play a little bit of Battlefield for a stream? Shut up. Shut up and continue this list. Number 3, man. I taught English in Korea to middle school and high school students. I like to walk up and down the aisles between the desks occasionally during class just to make sure that everybody's paying attention and not using their phones. One day during a 7th grade class, I walked to the very last row and looked down. I see a nice girl, completely average in every way, using an X-Acto knife to carve up her arms. Both arms were bleeding profusely, and I had about 30 horizontal cuts up to her elbows. She tried to cover them up, but I walked up on her too quickly. I grabbed the assistant teacher and whispered to her what was going on without any of the other students noticing, and she took the girl to the nurse. Not an overt meltdown, but something was wrong there. Nigga, like, she wanted that attention. And some idiot in here talking about, thank you for not drawing attention to what she was doing and trying to get her some help. She wanted the attention. You don't cut in public. You know, okay, not a blanket statement saying everybody who's ever cut in public is looking for attention. I'm not saying that. But, you know, a lot of the people who are cutting are looking for attention. You can't deny this. You can't deny this, okay? If you know somebody who's cut and ever taken pictures of the cuts for anything other than, I mean, come on. Can you even name an excuse for taking pictures of your cuts? If not to share it with other people on Tumblr and go, I'm part of the club. Oh, I'm not guilty. I'm not reading that. Number 4, man. Just what a handful. Oh, here's a cool one. Number 5. I'm a teacher in prison. They were doing this Mavis Beacon teaches typing, and one inmate kept putting his hands on the wrong keys, to which he freaks out and starts yelling at the computer how it's a dumb motherfucker. Mavis Beacon is a dumb motherfucker. I type how I want. Mavis Beacon. Guys, what is this? What is any of this? This is... This... God damn it. We're done here. I don't think any of this is, working, you know? Today a girl kissed me. I wish I could post it in another subreddit. Oh, he posted it in jokes. That's funny. I mean fucked up in a way. Looks like a Jeff Goldblum shower curtain. I wonder if I could get a shower curtain of Goldblum. We got Jeff Goldblum. We got Jeff Goldblum. Goldblum. Shower curtain. Wow, it's crazy that came up first. Everybody must want these now. We've got the Goldblum. We got the Goldblum. We got the Goldblum. We got the Goldblum. Well, I like to believe that my life would be just a little bit brighter. Just a little bit brighter with a Jeff Goldblum, with a Goldblum shower curtain. Goldblum shower curtain, Nicolas Cage. You get like a Carrie Fisher pillow. You guys having a good, week, day, whenever this is happening to you. I hope you guys are fine. Hope you guys got it going on. I'll see you soon. And I'll try to stream tonight as well. Love you. Stay safe. Later. Wait. Yeah, I was just making sure I was like audible. That would be scary as hell if the audio didn't pick up this whole list. Wouldn't that be crazy? Later.